Imagine sitting in your quiet living room. Right. You're looking out the window with binoculars, safely watching a violent riot unfold just a few blocks away.
Right, feeling totally secure.
Exactly. You feel completely secure because of the distance. But then, without warning, the front door is kicked off its hinges. 100 people, all wearing the exact same mask, flood into your house and surround your sofa.
Oh, wow.
And they don't scream. They just stand there in dead silence, waiting for you to speak.
It is, honestly, the ultimate psychological trap. And in the digital landscape we're analyzing today, that physical distance you think you have, it's completely fabricated.
Welcome to the table. For this deep dive, pull up a chair and consider yourself the third detective in the room with us. Because, while we are pulling apart a specific, highly volatile digital collision that genuinely reads like a cyberpunk thriller.
Yeah, but it happened in real time, in plain sight, on social media.
Right. And our mission today is to unpack this surreal incident involving a world-renowned, prison-hardened Uruguayan hacker named Alberto Daniel Hill.
A truly fascinating figure.
Very much so. We're going to examine the exact moment he decided to quietly lurk inside a 400-person digital mob's command center, an X-base dubbed Bombitas del gobierno, and we'll break down the chilling interrogation that unfolded when that mob turned its collective eye on him.
But before we step through the digital doors of that X-base, we need to set the table with a non-negotiable caveat. We have a massive stack of source materials to get through today.
Right, the raw audio and dossiers.
Exactly. We're looking at intercepted audio transcripts, forensic psychological profiles of decentralized networks, and these heavily redacted cyber intelligence dossiers. And these sources contain incredibly charged political accusations.
Highly charged, like international cyber warfare, corruption.
And alleged collusion between high-ranking Mexican government officials and the Sinaloa cartel.
Yeah. So to be absolutely clear to you listening, we are not endorsing, validating, or verifying any of these political or criminal claims.
Not at all.
We are strictly analyzing the intelligence and the narratives exactly as they appear in the original documents to understand the ecosystem. We're looking at the mechanics of this network purely as analysts.
Right, just looking at the machinery of it all.
So grab your headphones. I want you to imagine dropping into the middle of a digital coliseum. You click a link on your timeline and enter the Bombitas del Gobierno X-Space.
And let's talk about the sensory environment of an X-space of this size, because, the user interface itself is part of the weapon.
It really is. It's overwhelming.
It's not just text. You're looking at a screen filled with hundreds of avatars, and the audio engineering is designed to be immersive.
The sources show a room with nearly 400 people listening, but it's not a structured lecture or like a panel discussion.
No, not at all.
You have 12 different speakers with their microphones unmuted at the exact same time. They're simultaneously screaming, coordinating attacks, laughing, and launching wild accusations. It's an absolute wall of aggressive, overlapping noise.
And in the center of this coliseum, there's a target.
Always a target.
Right. The primary focus of the mob's collective rage during this specific broadcast is a Mexican cybersecurity figure and podcaster named Hector Lopez. He operates under the handle HackerSoIX.
And they're merciless. But what's interesting is they aren't attacking his technical coding skills. The mob is actively trying to dismantle his offline life.
Yeah, they start by calling him a Vivi.
Right, which is digital slang for someone just seeking fame, like a clout chaser. And they call him a pendejon, but the escalation happens so fast it almost gives you whiplash.
The psychological warfare tactics shift from standard internet insults to severe character assassination in a matter of seconds. I mean, it's dizzying.
Amidst all these overlapping voices, someone just casually accuses Hector of being involved in the actual physical murder of a rival hacker named Raul Robles.
Known in the community as Megabyte.
Yes, Megabyte. And before anyone can even process a murder accusation, different voices start throwing around life-ruining claims of pedophilia. It gets so dark. They call him a groomer and a violin, which is this really dark slang term for a rapist. And they're broadcasting this live to an audience of 400 people.
And the transcript reveals something fascinating about the nature of this specific group. Right in the middle of hurling these devastating personal accusations at Hector, the topic shifts without a single beat of hesitation.
Wait, yeah, this part is insane.
A user openly announces to the room that the government computer systems of Argentina are going to be hacked, and millions of files will be leaked before the end of the month.
They just drop a massive national security threat directly next to an internet meme.
Literally in the same breath.
I was trying to figure out how to categorize this environment, and it's basically a digital street brawl. It's not a coordinated military strike where an elite hacking unit is moving in silent, tactical precision to breach a server.
Right, it's loud.
Yeah, people are breaking windows, screaming at the top of their lungs, playing loud music, and they are loving every second of the spectacle.
Yeah. To understand the mechanics of this chaos, we have to zoom out. We need to analyze the anatomy of the mob hosting this riot. The intelligence dossiers focus heavily on a network known internally as the OAuth.
Or, as their enemies call them, the Cibercholos.
Exactly, and the name itself is a battleground. Hector Lopez uses the term Cibercholos constantly in his own broadcasts.
He wields it as a massive classist slur.
He really does.
He's essentially trying to strip them of their power by framing them as uneducated street thugs. He calls them lamers, positioning them as low-skill kids who don't know how to code, but just know how to trick people into clicking fake links.
Internally, however, the group completely rejects that framing while simultaneously leaning into the aggression it implies. They identify as OPFES, or simply OAuth-F, and they enforce this identity through a strict, mandatory digital uniform.
I find this part wild. They require their members to affix the prefix _off_ to their social media handles.
It's pure branding.
Yeah, so if you scroll through the listener list in this X space, you just see an endless wall of _Daniwesa, _Adrian, _Naomi.
Consider the psychological impact of that uniformity.
It's terrifying.
It is. When you're on the receiving end of a harassment campaign and 10 random people comment on your post, your brain processes it as 10 individual trolls. But when 10 accounts with the exact same prefix comment simultaneously,
your brain processes it as a coordinated military unit surrounding you.
Precisely. It creates a visual wall of intimidation on the timeline. And the dossiers show that this military aesthetic isn't just visual, it is structurally mapped out.
They operate with a highly specific phantom hierarchy. They want to project the image of a digital cartel.
So let's break down that org chart, starting at the top.
Okay, lay it out for us.
At the absolute apex, the intelligence reports identify a figure named Victor Ordóñez, operating under the alias Noche de Huevito. He is the alleged founder.
And the narrative surrounding him places operations out of Sinaloa, claiming a lifestyle of luxury while actively dodging rumors of money laundering.
Then, moving down the ladder, you have the operational leadership. You have a user named Busito7, who claims the bizarrely corporate title of second owner of OPFES.
Second owner, like it's a small business.
Right. But he functions as the shock jock of the organization. He curates the arena. He's the one opening these massive X spaces, fueling the adrenaline, and deciding who gets the microphone in the Coliseum.
But the ideological anchor of the group, and arguably the most volatile figure in this hierarchy, is a user named Julio Faguier.
Operating as Hacker Damaso.
Yes. Faguier is the cartel conspiracist. The dossiers show that he is the one injecting deeply paranoid political accusations into the mob's daily rhetoric.
He claims to possess actual narco-intelligence.
Exactly. He frequently accuses top Mexican security officials of being tumbadors, which refers to corrupt government agents who seize drugs only to sell them back to rival cartels.
And Faguier's role is crucial for understanding the group's capacity for extreme cruelty. He provides the mob with a moral shield.
Oh, that makes sense.
Think about it. If you're just doxing a random podcaster, you're a bully. You might feel a pang of guilt.
Yeah.
But if Faguier convinces the mob that they're actually dismantling a corrupt, cartel-linked shadow government,
their harassment transforms into a righteous crusade.
Exactly. It weaponizes their boredom and gives them a mission. Which brings us to the foundation of the hierarchy, the Brazo Armado, or the armed wing.
These are the foot soldiers, the rank-and-file accounts.
Yeah.
I want to dig into the mechanics of this armed wing, because Hector Lopez dismisses them as low skill, but how are they actually operating? What makes a group of Twitter accounts an armed wing?
It comes down to their mastery of platform algorithms. The Brazo Armado doesn't need to write complex malware.
Right.
Their job is to flood timelines, rhythmically chant phrases like Arribala Upphase, and artificially boost the visibility of their attacks.
Wait, how do you actually manipulate the algorithm like that? Because everyone talks about the algorithm like it's magic, but it's just code, right?
It is just code. Social media recommendation engines prioritize the velocity of engagement.
Okay.
If one person posts a controversial tweet, the platform might show it to 50 people. But if 50 accounts with the _prefix coordinate to retweet, quote tweet, and reply to that specific post within a 60-second window?
The algorithm flags it as a trending conversation.
Precisely. So the platform's own code grabs the mob's attack and forcibly pushes it onto the For You pages of thousands of unrelated people.
They're weaponizing the user interface exactly as it was designed to maximize engagement and groupthink. They hunt for IP addresses and photographs, and then they use the algorithm to ensure maximum public humiliation.
Which brings us back to the Bombitas del Gobierno X space.
Right, back to the Coliseum.
We have this chaotic 400-person digital riot fueled by cartel conspiracies and algorithmic manipulation. And quietly slipping into the back row, just listening to the audio, is Alberto Daniel Hill.
And Hill's profile stands in stark contrast to the people he's observing.
Utterly different.
The dossiers position Hector Lopez as a podcaster chasing clout, but Alberto Hill is a veteran of the actual cyber underground with unassailable, real-world credibility.
The sources outline a pretty harrowing background for him. Hill is a Uruguayan hacker who survived a 17-month wrongful imprisonment in his home country.
Yeah, he was raided by Interpol over what essentially amounted to a typographical error in a search warrant. The police seized his legitimate cryptographic hardware and branded him an extortionist.
We should define what that means in this context because law enforcement often misunderstands specialized hardware.
It happens a lot.
Right. If an investigator finds a series of encrypted drives or hardware wallets used for legitimate cybersecurity testing, and they lack the technical literacy to understand them, those tools are quickly framed as the instruments of a cyber criminal.
And that's exactly what happened to Hill. He survived an absolute systemic judicial failure where his high-level technical knowledge was criminalized. He knows intimately what it feels like when a massive, powerful state apparatus decides to crush you.
He really does.
But I'm looking at this scenario, and I genuinely don't understand his motivation here. Why would a hardened, trauma-surviving expert like Hill, a guy who deals with international cryptography and state-level forensics, spend his evening listening to a bunch of screaming Twitter trolls calling themselves Cibercholos?
Well, the dossiers describe Hill's operational mindset as that of a meta-analyst. He isn't logging on to argue in the comments.
Oh, so he's not engaging.
No. He was tipped off to the space by a Mexican cybersecurity colleague, and notably by a Mexican woman in her 30s who had wandered into the broadcast and was just horrified by the absolute lawlessness she was witnessing.
So he enters as a ghost. He wants to see what she's seeing.
Exactly. He treats the Bombitas space as a live, open-source intelligence feed. He's conducting adversarial threat hunting. He wants to map out who the key players are, how they coordinate, and what their actual capabilities are beyond the screaming.
And what he observes from the back row changes everything. Because amidst all the noise, he watches the mob prove that they aren't just all talk.
He watches them actively dox Hector Lopez in real time.
We need to explain the mechanics of what the Brazo Armado is doing here, because doxing isn't just typing a name into Google. It requires sophisticated open-source intelligence, or OSINT.
Right.
Break that down for us. How do they go from yelling at a podcaster's Twitter handle to finding his family?
It's a chain of digital breadcrumbs. Let's say a target uses a specific handle. The mob searches that handle across obscure databases and finds an old forum post from, like, 2012.
Okay.
That post contains an obsolete email address. They take that email address and run it through repositories of known data breaches, like the massive leaks from LinkedIn or Yahoo years ago.
And people reuse passwords.
Constantly. So they find a reused password, or they find a secondary email link for account recovery. They cross-reference that new data point with public property registries, voter databases, or even an unsecured Amazon wish list.
Wow.
Suddenly, they aren't just looking at an avatar, they have a physical address.
And that is exactly what Hill watches them do to Hector. They don't just reveal an email address, they publish the physical phone number of Hector's wife.
It's vicious.
They broadcast photographs of his family, they drop the exact physical location of his father.
This is a critical threshold. By executing this OSINT chain live on the air, the mob shatters the digital illusion. They prove to Hill, a seasoned analyst, that for this specific group, the barrier between an anonymous online argument and a physical, real-world living room simply does not exist.
And right as Hill is processing the sheer terrifying capability of this network, the platform betrays him.
Because the UI of Xspaces prominently displays the avatar of every single listener to the hosts.
Yeah. One of the hosts in the Bombitas space is scanning the massive grid of listeners and spots him. The transcripts catch the moment. The host casually says, Oh, there's Alberto.
Just like that.
Sitting in Uruguay, Hill feels a massive spike of adrenaline. He's internally panicking, thinking, do not pull me onto the stage. Do not hand me the microphone.
You don't give him the mic at that moment. The chaos of the room sweeps the host's attention away. But the seed of awareness is planted. The mob knows an outsider, a highly skilled one, is watching them.
But Hill doesn't run away. His meta-analyst brain kicks into overdrive. He begins quietly clicking on their profiles, following their accounts, mapping their connections.
He is trying to build a threat profile on the fly.
Exactly. But in this highly paranoid digital ecosystem, observation is a two-way mirror. When you start following accounts tied to a digital mob, their defensive mechanisms are instantly triggered.
Because they get the push notifications. Alberto Daniel Hill has followed you.
They know the outsider is now actively gathering intelligence on them.
And the counterattack is terrifyingly fast.
Yeah, just 10 minutes later, Hill is hosting his own quiet private X space. It's just him and the Mexican woman who originally tipped him off.
Just a quiet debrief.
Right. They are quietly discussing the doxing they just witnessed, and suddenly, the digital doors blow entirely off their hinges.
The invasion begins.
The sources describe a flood. Roughly 100 accounts swarm into Hill's small private space. And what do they look like? They all bear the identical off_ prefix.
It's that mask analogy.
Yes. 100 people wearing the exact same face, filling up his screen.
This is the Brazo Armado flexing its muscle. And notice that they don't start screaming immediately. They are demonstrating capacity.
That's so intimidating.
They're showing Hill that they can mobilize massive numbers in an instant, weaponizing the platform's user interface to physically crowd out any sense of safety he had.
The avatars start flashing on his screen. The platform is notifying him of a barrage of requests. They are demanding the microphone.
They don't care about Hector Lopez anymore.
No, they have cornered the Uruguayan analyst who is spying on them.
Hill is faced with a critical choice here. He could shut down the space and run, which would likely trigger a massive automated doxing campaign against him because he showed fear. Or he can face them.
And Hill realizes he cannot outrun a 100-person algorithm. He accepts the microphone requests, and in an instant, the quiet debrief transforms into a hostile tribunal.
The interrogation of Alberto Daniel Hill begins. And based on Hill's recounted testimony in the dossier, the tone is entirely different from the street brawl we saw earlier.
Yeah, the Cibercholos take the stage, and they don't hurl random insults. They fire highly specific, pointed questions at him. They're probing his operational security.
Question number one right out of the gate. Do you work for the government?
Which is wild. Why start there? Out of all things they could ask a famous hacker, why do they care if he's a bureaucrat?
We have to view this through the lens of Julio Fogier's cartel paranoia.
Yeah.
This group views itself as fighting a constant shadow war against perceived state criminal alliances.
Right.
They live in a world where they believe government officials are actively facilitating cartel violence. They need to know immediately if Hill is a state asset sent by a foreign intelligence agency to profile them.
It's a hostile identification check. I want you, listening, to put yourself in Hill's shoes for a second. You have 100 identical avatars staring at you, waiting for your answer. How do you respond to that?
And before he can fully navigate the first question, they hit him with the second, which is a massive trap.
Yeah.
What is your position on criminalizing the fight against drugs?
That is an insanely loaded question coming from a group whose alleged founder operates out of Sinaloa and whose members claim to possess narco-intelligence.
It is designed as a lose-lose scenario. If he gives a rigid law enforcement answer, they dox him as a state sympathizer.
And if he gives an anti-establishment answer,
They dox him as a rival cartel operative.
So how does a trauma-informed, prison-hardened analyst respond to a digital cartel tribunal?
With incredible composure.
He relies entirely on his background. He answers their questions with a cold, analytical calmness. He realizes in the moment that they have probably already run an OSINT background check on him.
Oh, absolutely. They already know his history.
They're testing his physiological response. They are listening to the micro-tremors in his voice. They are looking for a crack in his psychological armor.
They want him to sweat.
But Hill doesn't sweat. And then he executes this masterful pivot. Instead of remaining on the defensive, answering their rapid-fire questions like a suspect in an interrogation room, he starts counter-interrogating them.
This is a highly dangerous but brilliant psychological tactic.
He presses them specifically on the claims they made earlier in the Bombitas space. He says, okay, you guys said Hector Lopez is tied to the murder of Raul Robles. You said you have the investigation file. I want to know about that file. Tell me about the murder.
He engages them with pure analytical curiosity. He essentially validates their desire to be seen as serious operators with high-level intelligence.
while simultaneously demanding proof of their claims.
Exactly. By doing this, he steps out of the role of target and into the role of peer investigator.
And the result is entirely surreal. Because Hill didn't fight them with insults, and because he didn't show fear, he short-circuits their algorithm of harassment.
The standoff doesn't end in a digital bloodbath.
No. He survives the tribunal without getting his family doxxed. The space ends in this incredibly tense, respectful detente.
It is a masterclass in de-escalation. But, this encounter leaves us with a massive logical puzzle that the intelligence reports struggle to resolve.
Yeah, let's look at the aftermath. Because we have two completely conflicting narratives about who these ciberchozos actually are.
On one hand, you have Hector Lopez screaming that these guys are just low-skill script kiddies tricking people with fake links.
But on the other hand, the dossiers show that Alberto Hill himself previously flagged members of this exact off-off network as being active participants in the Cronus Mafia.
And the Cronus Mafia is no joke.
Not at all. The documents describe them as a highly sophisticated syndicate extorting nation-states, hacking the Argentine government, and wielding massive data leaks.
The question becomes, how can a group of guys posting memes and yelling in a Twitter space be the same people executing state-level extortion? How can they be both?
It feels like a massive contradiction.
The contradiction itself is the answer. The nature of the cyber threat has fundamentally evolved. Their deep-level coding skill is mathematically irrelevant to the threat they pose.
I want to make sure I fully understand this. How is coding skill irrelevant to a hacker group?
Because they don't need to possess zero-day exploits. A zero-day exploit is a highly complex, incredibly expensive piece of code that attacks a software vulnerability no one knows about yet.
Right. That requires genius-level engineering.
Exactly. The OAF network doesn't need that. They possess absolute mastery over mob dynamics, open-source intelligence, and psychological warfare.
So the danger isn't that they are going to write a complex script to bypass your corporate encryption?
The danger is that they will bypass the computer entirely. They'll use publicly available data to find out where your family sleeps, and they will broadcast it to 400 angry, paranoid people who view you as a cartel sympathizer.
The human being is the vulnerability.
And they are experts at exploiting human terror.
Which perfectly explains the chilling final detail in these intelligence dossiers. After surviving this interrogation, after staring down the barrel of the 100-person off-off swarm, Alberto Daniel Hill goes completely silent.
His digital footprint regarding this group vanishes.
Prior to this, he was tagging them, tracking their links to the Cronus Mafia, analyzing their movements publicly. But his most recent public footprint, 0 direct mentions of op phase, 0 mentions of the Cibercholos. He drops the subject entirely.
This raises a vital analytical question. How do we interpret that silence?
I mean, part of me wonders, did he just realize Hector Lopez was right? Did Hill look closely, realize they were just faking their power with botnets and memes, get bored, and move on to real threats?
It's a plausible theory. But given Hill's specific background, the 17 months in a Uruguayan prison, the destruction of his own life by a massive system, I lean heavily toward a much darker alternative.
Which is?
Hill is a man who calculates risk with surgical precision. I believe he survived that interrogation, looked deeply at their capacity for physical world doxing via OSINT, and recognized the sheer volatility of a mob fueled by cartel paranoia.
He made a calculated choice.
He made the prison-hardened decision that poking a highly paranoid, deeply unpredictable digital mob simply wasn't worth the operational risk. You can build a firewall to defend against a targeted malware attack. You cannot build a firewall against 400 people randomly deciding to ruin your physical life for entertainment.
So his silence isn't ignorance, it is a highly rational survival tactic.
When the world-class, trauma-hardened hacker decides the best move is to slowly back out of the room and never say their name again, that tells you exactly how dangerous the OAF network really is.
It completely redefines our understanding of where digital power actually resides today.
It really does.
So let's wrap this up. We've been on an incredible journey today. We started by walking into a chaotic 400-person digital riot where a podcaster's physical life was being torn apart. We mapped the phantom hierarchy of a digital swarm that wears identical uniforms to weaponize a social media algorithm.
We followed a world-class analyst into the shadows, watching as he was outed, cornered, and subjected to a surreal tribunal regarding government ties and cartel politics.
And we dissected the specific psychological tactics he used to survive it.
Yeah.
For you, the listener, I want you to reflect on your own perceived digital safety. We all sit behind our screens, maybe using an anonymous avatar, debating strangers on our timelines, assuming the physical distance protects us.
But this deep dive proves that organized, weaponized digital mobs have completely erased the line between the internet and your front door.
The physical distance does not exist if they decide to pull the OSINT thread on your life.
Which leaves us with a lingering structural question to think about. We spent this entire time analyzing a group, the Cibercholos, OPFES, whose entire power structure relies on visibility.
That's right.
Their phantom hierarchy, their armed wing, their interrogations, it all requires an audience to function. Their power is entirely performative.
So, if a digital mob's power relies completely on the spectacle, what happens to their empire if the social media platforms simply tweak the algorithm? What happens if the platform identifies the off_ prefix and quietly turns off the stage? Does a digital armed wing even exist if there is no one left watching the timeline?
If a digital mob screams, but the algorithm mutes them, do they still have power?
Something to mull over the next time you log on. Thank you so much for joining us at the table for this deep dive. Stay curious, keep questioning the narrative, and please stay safe out there in the digital wild.